Hi friends, I'm Kaylee and welcome to my little bookish corner of the internet. Today we are going to be talking about all the books I read in March. This month I read 9 books. I wanted to read more, but life's just been chaotic, mostly in all the best ways, but I'm actually so proud for reading as much as I did, especially with all the changes going on in my life. I've been focusing a lot more on actually digesting the books I've been reading, so I'll usually wait about a day in between books. The first book I read was Never Look Back by A.L. Jackson. It follows Logan Lawson, the youngest of the Lawson brothers, and his ex-love, Astor Costa. He wins her in a bet, and just trust me on this, she sees it as her one last opportunity to escape the dark and dangerous life she's been forced to live. It is a forced marriage, second chance, close proximity, friends to lovers to enemies to lovers, small town romance. I wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into when I started. I didn't even bother to read the synopsis because I just knew I was gonna love it. There's something about the last book in a series that always does it for me, but it was definitely everything I'd ever dreamed of and then some. When I was reading his brother's books, I was definitely intrigued to see how his character was going to play out in his own. I was definitely hoping it was going to carry the same depth. You could clearly see that there was so much more to his character than meets the eye. Not only did his character translate seamlessly from the outside narrative to his own, but there was a whole other side to him that I didn't even predict in the slightest. At the end of the day, this man would lay down his life for anyone he loves. He is definitely a family man, so to that I say you can knock me up any day of the week. I'm just keeping it real. I don't want to inflate his ego anymore, but he's definitely my favorite Lawson brother. The chemistry was absolutely unreal. There was just something about the forced proximity that hit different this time. The feminist in me wants to be disgusted that he won her during a literal card game, but that one gave them their second chance, so the hopeless romantic in me is just gonna call it fate. Next was The Failed Audition, the first book in the Circus's Family series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. It follows Thora James as she upends her life to move to Vegas to audition to become an aerialist in Amari, a risque acrobatic show. The night before her audition, she meets her new roommate at the Red Death, the club she bartends at, who she doesn't anticipate meeting though is Nikolai Kotova. He challenges her to a handstand competition, and being a gymnast, she's feeling very confident. That is until he wagers that if she loses, he gets to tattoo or pierce any part of her body and vice versa. Anyway, she ends up losing the bet and he pierces her boob. The Vegas storm. But get this, the next day she walks into her audition at Aerial Ethereal and boom! Who's there? None other than the god of Russia, Nikolai Kotova. Turns out he comes from generations of acrobats, so he's basically royalty. Thora ends up failing her audition. Don't worry, that isn't a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. But between her insistence to stay in Vegas until the next audition that isn't for months, and his desire to protect her innocence, they agree that he is going to become her trainer. It's essentially steamy Cirque du Soleil. There were so many subtle nods to the Calloway sisters and their men, and it made my heart so full. If there's anything I can say to convince you to read the Circus Family series, let it be that. The Ritchie sisters have this way of making anything that would usually live beyond the realm of believability seem perfectly normal. I want to run away and join the circus to become an acrobat? Oh sure, I can do that. Girl, no you can't. You cannot. With what experience? I genuinely went into such an obsessive deep dive on the world of Cirque du Soleil after reading this. I was so determined that I was going to be the next Thora James. So I applaud them for nurturing my delusion. All of the characters were just so lovable. Timo definitely stole the show, but Thora is such a comfort character. She's so, this is me trying Mirrorball coded. I mean, aren't we all? I also don't want to degrade him. He's got plenty of lovely qualities. But at the end of the day, Nikolai was just hot. But he does live up to that nickname, God of Russia, let me tell you. The way he would just outwardly state everything rather than posing it as a question just did me in. I should be disappointed that I'm about to say this, but I would let him mansplain anything to me every day of the week. I'm just a woman, what do I know? Moving on, then we've got Into the Tide by Laura Pavlov. I've dabbled in some of her work. I think I've only read the last 2 books of the Honey Mountain series, so I actually read this one as an arc. It's the first book in the Cottonwood Cove series that she teased at the end of the Honey Mountain series. So naturally, I took it as a sign. Lila James is home for the summer and she's working at her brother's best friend's restaurant. Long story short, they're also friends, and she gets so comfortable with him that she decides to ask him to take her virginity. Is anyone else home? Just me? Okay, I hope so. But essentially, he doesn't want to betray her brother's trust, so it ends up being somewhat of a forbidden romance. The tension between the two of them was so good. That scene in the cove, I'm gonna be thinking about that for the next 3 to 5 business years. It was that good. This is definitely a character-driven story. Each and every one of the characters was established and contributed something purposeful to the overall structure of the story. For those of you that are found family lovers, much like myself, you are going to love the Reynolds family. Their dynamic is just everything. If you need to be swayed anymore, the male protagonist, Hugh, is Brody, protective, and manages 3 businesses. Oh my god. And not only that, he's a family man. A true girl boss if I ever did see one. He radiates such baseball player energy, and that is the best compliment I could ever give. I mean, he's always wearing this backward baseball cap, and he mows the lawn shirtless, so need I say more? I'm swooning over here. After that, I read The Secret Ex-Boyfriend, the second book in the Circus's Family series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. Out of all the books I read this month, I thought about this one the most. I made a Pinterest board the day I finished it, and complete transparency, I look at it every night before I go to bed. It is my pride and joy. It is all about Nikolai's brother, Luka Kotova, and his childhood love, Bailey Wright. They're both employed under Aerial, Ethereal, an acrobatic company. And together, they broke one of the most sacred rules, leading them to signing contracts that ensure that they don't so much as look, speak, or think about each other ever again, even when they decide they're done with the company. All grown up now, Luka is harboring so much hate for corporate, as he should. I would too. I mean, they took not only his true love, but his best friend away. It's all amplified when they're signed to the same show in Feeney, making it even more difficult to honor their agreement. I wanted to protect Luka and Bailey at all costs. I did not want them to go through all that pain and suffering, even if it made them stronger in the end. Oh my god. They deserved so much better. A trope I never see anyone talk about is the dual protector dynamic. They were there for each other during the lowest of lows. The way they spoke not only to each other, but about each other made it so obvious just how in love they were. They are destined to be soulmates in every universe. As an avid angst lover, their dynamic was tragically beautiful. Once again, it was the Kotova love that got to me. Especially toward the ending, just seeing the lengths they would go through to protect their family just made me want to bawl my eyes out. I've never seen anyone write a found family trope quite like Krista and Becca Ritchie. It is their niche. I also want it noted that I absolutely despised Dimitri in the failed audition. If you go back and look at my review on Goodreads, I made it so clear that I didn't think he was going to get any redemption. Yet I manifested it. Because I go to bed every night thinking about him now, so who's the winner here? That is some serious character development, and I am not one to forgive men. I don't mean easily, I mean at all. Complete transparency. The way Krista and Becca just changed my mind like that kind of slayed. Krista and Becca are the only 2 authors I've read that perfectly balance character and plot development. The story isn't driven by one or the other, they excel in both. There isn't a moment where I was confused about someone's purpose. They make it so clear, and never once did I wonder who anyone was. Even with the Kotova family being as big as they are, each character had a distinctive personality and voice to match. They paint such a vivid picture that I genuinely could visualize every act as if I was sitting in the audience. There were so many more references to the Calloway sisters and their men in this book than there were in the last. I could not stop giggling like a little schoolgirl. I always appreciate whenever authors acknowledge their past work in their writing. It's such a nice little surprise for the reader. It was a 5-star read, and I could go on about this book forever, so I'll just save my breath because as if life couldn't get any better, then I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm just gonna read you the blurb because I've got so much to say about this. I am just gonna skim through it though because, like I said, there's so much I want to talk about. It says, a couple who broke up months ago make a pact to pretend to still be together for their annual week-long vacation with their best friends. Harriet and Wynn have been the perfect couple since they met in college, except now for reasons they're still not discussing, they don't. They broke up 6 months ago and still haven't told their best friends, which is how they find themselves sharing the largest bedroom at the main cottage that has been their friends group's yearly getaway for the last decade. Only this year, Harriet and Wynn are lying through their teeth while trying not to notice how desperately they still want each other because the cottage is for sale and this is the last week they'll all have together in this place. They can't stand to break their friends' hearts, and so they'll play their parts. Harriet will be the driven surgical resident who never starts a fight, and Wynn will be the laid-back charmer who never lets the cracks show. It's a flawless plan if you look at it from a great distance and through a pair of sunscreen-smeared sunglasses. After years of being in love, how hard can it be to fake it for 1 week? In front of those who know you best. I fear I will never be in a coherent enough state of mind to put just how much this book means to me into words. Without a doubt, Happy Place is Emily Henry's best work. I wasn't aware I was capable of feeling so many emotions, yet alone all at once. The banter! I always knew Emily excelled at it, but good lord is it amplified in this book. It was just non-stop between the two. They are the literary definition of the word soulmates. I don't think I've seen two people that belong together more than they do. I could just feel the desperation behind their separation. As a side note, I actually can't see anything. In this current moment, I'm convinced I'm becoming legally blind. My contacts just don't work the way they used to. Whenever I'm reading a book, I'm legitimately like, because I can't see anything, so I should probably get that checked out. I am an advocate for excessive angst, and let me tell you, Miss Henry served. She absolutely slayed this one. All of the second chance romance girlies like myself are thriving right now. She is my Michelangelo. Everything she writes is pure gold. There were so many moments where I thought to myself, oh, the girlies are gonna love this. I don't mean that casually. I mean the book community is going to go absolutely feral when this book releases. And I am so flattered that I got an early release copy of it. It was genuinely one of the best days of my life because I did read this in one sitting. The friendships is what sealed the deal for me though. To my core, I am a found family lover. And naturally, being the all-knowing entity that she is, Emily Henry absolutely delivered. I have such a deep appreciation for the way they started as a group of 3 and ended as a group of 6, and everyone had a place in that group. As an avid 4.9 star rater and a one-time reader, I can say that without a doubt this was a 5-star read, and I wanted to reread it not even a quarter of the way through. So I just started the book and thought, I'm done for. There's no way it can get any better, and it did. It just kept getting better. I've never wanted to inject something in my bloodstream or tattoo it on my soul the way I do now. If this were the last book I were to read during my time on Earth, or even the only book, I would consider it a blessing. I hope Happy Place does for Emily Henry what Midnight did for Taylor Swift, and by that I mean it better top every bestseller list to ever exist. I will make sure of it. I will never stop talking if that's what it takes to give this book the attention it deserves. I mean, if this doesn't become your favorite book, I am genuinely going to question your emotional well-being. It is just... I'm speechless. As someone that never stops talking, let that be a sign to you. Please read Happy Place by Emily Henry when it comes out. April 25th, 2023. April is going to be such a great month. Another arc I read this month was Between Commitment and Betrayal by Shane Rose. Lots of thoughts on this one. Everly and Declan, her late father's business partner and retired NFL player, must marry and abide by a certain set of stipulations to keep their respective family businesses, per her father's will. I've seen this storyline a lot in the past year. Now, this is the first book in the Hardy Billionaire Brothers series, a forced proximity, arranged marriage, sports romance. I already am not a lover of sports romances. I just got something against football. I'm not sure why, but going into this without reading any of the author's previous work, I wasn't sure what to expect. It seemed promising at the beginning. I do want it noted that I am in no way deterred from reading any more of this author's work. I'm simply acknowledging that this was just not my cup of tea. I just couldn't get behind the characters. Everly's independence would have been empowering had she not given into her arranged husband's way during literally every disagreement. She's willing to stand up to everyone except him. I just don't understand. Declan was just the walking definition of toxic masculinity. A red flag if I ever saw one. I don't want to go into too much detail, but he just takes the word possessive to another level and not a good one. There are certain decisions he thinks he gets an opinion on just because Everly's his wife. All I'm gonna say is her body, her choice. Not a new concept. At least it shouldn't be. The smut was good, but only enjoyable if you're willing to look past that their relationship was built purely on lust. It is very surface level. In no way was it healthy. The hate sex trope is my guilty pleasure, but even I can admit that getting it on every time you disagree is not going to nurture a lasting relationship. once again, as someone that loves the angst the silent treatment builds, resorting to it every time isn't going to get anyone anywhere. Okay, there's drama and there's angst. With angst, there's a buildup, a proper story that gives way to palpable emotion. Drama just exists. There isn't always a catalyst for it, and if there is, it's almost never significant. It just exists for the sake of it. Unfortunately, in this novel, all we got was stereotypical drama. The plot revolved around Declan demanding Edie do something, her not doing it, them arguing about her not doing it, until they end up sleeping together. Apparently this was a month for arcs, because then I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I'm going to spare a lot of details because I will be posting a reading vlog later this week that goes much more into detail. Fern, our female protagonist, is a barista that has a chance encounter with Will, an art school grad that is painting a mural at the coffee shop she works at. They decide to take their chemistry to the streets of Toronto for a day-long adventure. Their connection, as undeniable as it was, led them to making a pact that they are going to meet a year from now. After Will leaves Fern stranded on the dock of her mother's resort, 365 days later, she spends the next 9 years thinking about him. Why? I don't know. He's a man. I personally wouldn't waste that time, but to each their own. After vowing that she would not take over the resort, a sudden death leads her back to Muskoka in the position she never wished to be in. Naturally, given the current state of her life, it couldn't get any worse. Except it can when Will shows up. That's so embarrassing. The complete opposite of the man she once knew, Fern decides she is going to give him a lifeline, the same one he gave to her 9 years ago. While I may not have agreed with all of the choices the author made, they made sense stylistically in the direction she was choosing to take the story. Even with some conflicting thoughts and emotions, reading the acknowledgements at the end of the book put everything into perspective for me. While it isn't a story I would say everyone needs to read, it was definitely a story the author needed to write, even if just to cope with her own experiences. It did take me a while to warm up to, but without a doubt I would read another one of her novels. I would say it's very similar to People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry vibe-wise. I personally am a People We Meet on Vacation lover. There is so much controversy over that book in the sense that you either love it or hate it. I will say if you didn't enjoy Every Summer After, you probably won't enjoy her next book. So take that as you will. I never reread books, but my book club Lessons in Love was reading Beach Read by Emily Henry, so naturally so did I. It's all about two rivaling authors, January Andrews and Augustus Everett, that are spending the next 3 months living in neighboring beach houses trying to get out of their writer's block. So they decide to strike up a deal. They're gonna swap genres. Gus is going to write the next swoon-worthy rom-com, and January is going to write the next great American novel. Naturally, they can't get anything done without researching. So each week they take each other on these little adventures that will lead them to writing the next best-selling work of art. I love Emily Henry's writing so much because the characters are just so real. There's this societal pressure around falling in love young, and she just completely avoids that take. Almost all of her characters, you'll notice, are toward the end of their 20s or in their early to mid 30s. It's very reassuring, especially in the world of rom-coms. She prioritizes friendships over every other relationship she writes, and I've come to appreciate that a lot more lately. Overall, it was even better the second time around, so I definitely recommend. Last is an unexpected favorite. It is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I'm actually still working on this one, but I'll be done by the time the month's over. I'm about 85% of the way done. My nephew actually recommended it, and just seeing his whole face light up when talking about it, there was no way I could not read it. It is all about this young black girl, Amari Peters, as she takes on the world of supernatural affairs and attempts to find her missing brother Quentin. All I could think about while reading this book was, this is the Harry Potter of the new generation. It would translate so well to the big screen, and I never say that about books. The most recent book I said that about was The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. Let me tell you, this girl is the definition of the word resilience. Not only is she grieving the disappearance of her brother, also her role model, she's also experiencing racial profiling. The author takes on such important matters like systemic racism and inequality in a way that is digestible for readers of all ages. It makes my heart so happy that my nephews get to grow up in a world where diversity in literature is alive and thriving. Growing up, all of the characters in books looked like me. All of the people on TV looked like me. white and usually from an American background. I was never not represented. I will never not be represented. It breaks my heart beyond belief that there are entire cultures and races that are being suppressed. Their voices are silenced. Even a lot of the popular authors we're seeing on Book Talk, Bookstagram, BookTube, they're primarily white authors. So I can only imagine the impact this book had on those communities that weren't being represented. She talks a lot about what it's like being a Black girl in today's society. People just don't expect much of you. They're surprised whenever you excel. I will never be able to recommend this enough. Well friends, those were all of the books I read in March. I've linked all my socials down below. I post daily on my book talk, and you can stay updated on my current reads over on Goodreads. If you want to read with me, I've got a book club over on Fable. It's called Lessons in Love, and you should totally check it out. We are currently still voting on our April read. By the time you're watching this, we've already chosen, but it's currently between 7 Days in June and The Friend Zone. They are evenly split at 50-50 right now. So I'm very interested to see what we choose. But it's an amazing little community and I made so many friends. So you should definitely check it out. My Bookstagram DMs are always open. If you've read any of these books or you're wanting to read any of these books, or if you've got any other book recommendations for me, I'd love to know. I also started posting on my Bookstagram like I said I was going to. I'm so proud of myself. But that is all on my end. I love you all, and as always, happy reading.